We'll start with the testing update.
I'll start, maybe if you want to add stuff into there. So as of 10 o'clock today, we have 829 cases in the state of Montana, 29 new cases, and 22 deaths and 14 active hospitalizations. We've had 136 cases in the last week. And just as an interesting fact, our United States COVID fatality numbers are 10 times the number of annual flu deaths. So this definitely is not the flu, as everybody, or some people keep reflecting on. It's just like the flu. It's not. So that's kind of interesting on that. Do you have any other?
I guess I just think a couple notable trends is that we've hit the most cases in a day. We've hit the most hospitalizations that we've had so far, up to 17. Our percentage of test positive was below 1%. It's been between 1 and 2% now. At worst was 5%. The state ran 3,200 tests yesterday, which is a huge increase. The governor wants us to do 60,000 a month, which means about 2,000 tests a day, and we've been doing it at least 1,000 a day. So running 3,000 is really good.
Okay. Any comments or in regards to the testing update? Okay, next, upcoming events.
I just wanted to put that on there so everybody was aware of any upcoming events. And I forgot my little notes, so please, everybody, add to it. I know that there's a mechanical bowl competition that's coming to Dillon, I believe, during the Dillon History Days. I am not exactly sure what happens at a mechanical bowl competition. I do know that the person who puts it on has called and is very conscientious regarding putting in safety precautions and that kind of thing, and he is writing a written plan and will send it to us. I don't know if anybody else knows anything more that they can add about that. I don't know how many people at one time come in there. It's going to be in the old Shopco building. I don't know if there's like fans that come. So I just wanted to bring that up. If anybody could elaborate on that, that would be great.
The ones that I've gone to, they usually have about 500 people.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
There.
anything between 300 to 500 people. So, you know, it could be more, who knows, but that's what they usually do, the ones that I've gone to.
I only know about the one from Urban Cowboy.
You weren't paying attention to the crowd.
I was too.
So that could be a concern if they are large numbers. That building isn't that big.
Pardon?
The Shopco building isn't that big to hold in large numbers of people. So I'm not sure. I guess we'll see when that plan comes.
Yeah, you gotta talk to him, but that's, the ones in the past, so that's in the past, so I don't know what today.
Somebody needs to mute their phone on the conference call.
And then the other upcoming event is the Dillon History Days, and I have talked to the city regarding that, and I think that's going to work out really well. With the social distancing, they will have, maybe the mayor can talk about it more, but they'll have signs up regarding social distancing and the sanitation procedures and all those kinds of things. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything more to add on the Dillon History Days, or?
No, just it's going to be more like shots.
Right, yeah. So I don't think that will be a huge concern. Public Health is planning on doing asymptomatic COVID testing, walkthrough on that, on Friday, the 24th, July 24th. What are some other events coming up? I'm sorry, I forgot my notes.
About the 4th of July parade.
4th of July parade, I haven't heard anything on that. It's generally not a huge parade. I don't know if anybody has any comments regarding that.
It's been in the paper, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that.
I haven't heard a thing. Okay,
And I know the roping is coming up.
that's in
That plan's
the
been.
4th of July weekend, kind of, couple days.
So I don't know if anybody heard of any other events for July at least.
Okay, any other? Okay, next. I've got Labor Day festivities.
Well, I think it's, I think it's really important that we have a discussion regarding Labor Day festivities, the rodeo, the parade, the carnival, and the fair. And I have sent an email out to the Board of Health people, and I think they all know how I feel. And I just think maybe some kind of decision needs to be made today. So I will leave it at that and let the Board of Health members.
Okay, I'd open that for discussion. She mentioned 2, 3, 4 phases of Labor Day weekend. We'll touch on, fair and carnival happen earlier in the week. I know the fair, all like Powell County fair is going on with guidelines. Heather, I think possibly Madison counties too with guidelines as far as the fair. They're just changing the format a little bit and that kind of thing. Maybe, what do you call it, I want to say virtual, everything's virtual, but anyway, the livestock sales will go on, could be just parents and no big spectator things, that type of things happening. I've read some of that in the current emails from different places. Now, right down to every little detail of the fair, I'm not sure. I talked to Jessica and Shannon about it, and that's still in the making right now. But so that part, now carnival-wise, I haven't heard a word. I don't know how many, with a limited amount of carnivals there is available nowadays, I don't know how many fairs have a carnival anymore. It's hard to get a carnival. So, booked. And Kaylee's not in. Is there a carnival book for the fairgrounds? No?
I think, what I do know is that there's a tentative plan for one. I don't know if it's actually booked or not.
Yeah. Well, I would assume as scarce as they are, it's booked, but everybody's hanging in limbo till, at least, as Jason pointed out earlier, 2 weeks or 30 days ahead of the event before they decide whether it's a go or not. That's as much as I know at the carnival. Then I suppose you'd move into a discussion of the rodeo. The fair is the last event of the weekend. So on the rodeo, does anybody have anything to add with that? On TV the other night when I was eating it, the Three Forks was on and they were talking about a go there, but then I got an email that Three Forks rodeo is basically just a roping now. Yeah, I don't think there's rough stock at that. Now Ennis, there's a big going back and forth in Ennis of what's going to happen there. There's even a talk of, for what it's worth, just talk, that roping one day and rough stock the next. Split it like that, just to curb just to do that, whether that'll cash flow, if you will, break even, if you will. Something like that. I've heard of that flexibility, because there is two different kinds of crowds, without a doubt. There's the ones that like the timed events and ones that like the rough stock events. It's like PBR and PRCA. So that's as much as I know there.
Yeah, and so I have been in contact with the Gallatin County Health Officer regarding Three Forks Rodeo. They only approved the roping and not the whole rodeo. So they are looking into it, and they'll get back to me. I've talked to Madison County Public Health Director, and she said that the organizers of the Ennis Rodeo have not submitted a plan or had been in contact with them as of last week. And so I'm not sure what has happened with that, but I know they are very concerned about having a rodeo. The parade is not occurring. The permit did not get approved by the city of Ennis. So the parade is not occurring. So still kind of waiting on that. The Tri-County Rodeo was not approved, the plan was not approved, so there will not be a Tri-County. I think there's 2 rodeos there, and those won't be approved.
There's 2 days.
2 days, yeah.
Where's that?
Tri-County's at Deer Lodge, and that's Powell County, Anaconda, Deer Lodge, and Granite.
So have we been given any plans for any of this? For concert, for rodeo, for parade?
That's all.
No plan yet. I mean, I've been in contact with Keely, where she wanted to sit down with me and we can kind of work through a written plan, but nothing has been submitted yet.
And anything from the J.C.?
Just a second, you got a question.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize, your name?
Sorry,
please?
I'm Becky Stewart. I am the concert chair for Dillon J.C.'s. I'm here with Jason Schumacher. He's the rodeo chair for Dillon J.C.'s. We are working to develop plans to submit to the county health department for both events, the 2-day rodeo and the concert as well.
And I have the PRCA code and ground rules and safety guidelines, and also one from our stock contractor. They've been doing drive-in rodeos at his private property in eastern Montana, and he said this would be at least a starting point with you guys. I'll leave it with you. And, again, we haven't developed anything, but again, this is what we have to base off of. The PRCA is a 30-page document, and his is just 2 pages. So.
And I'm working with our agent to directly get, to be in contact with the artists that we have a contract to come for the concert, to make sure that, we're all on the same page, and to know just that their crews, the artists, the stagehands, etc., would all be included in our plan.
Yes, Carl.
In previous meetings, it was mentioned that there was a July 15th cutoff potentially for making a decision, is that right?
We would obviously like to have an idea on July 15th if we're able to have it. We can extend that out, but our hard deadline is 30 days prior because of vendor orders.
I really, I hear what you're saying, Sue, we need to make a decision. I don't think we can make a decision until we see plans for all of those events. And if we get a written plan, I think then we can just, and I do think you're right, we need to separate fair, carnival, rodeo, and concert. I really feel we need to see written plans on all 4 of those items before we can make a decision, an informed decision.
Would it be possible to maybe not have maybe a one-on-one meeting, or one-on-2 meeting with somebody, and just after they've had a chance to, I've read both of these documents, kind of what you'd be looking for, on a setting like this, I guess.
We could do that. I don't have a problem with that. You get together and do it, and then have it as a draft, and then present it to the board as a whole.
Correct.
Which, if we had a meeting in another 2 weeks, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but that's got to be before the 15th.
Yeah, 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out would be about the 10th.
But if we could go through the process of, then meeting with Sue and Megan, and then bring a formal plan
Yeah. I think that,
in another 2 weeks and make a decision.
I think
And
that,
maybe walk around the fairgrounds, you know, we talked about the last meeting, kind of having a checkered seating. You know, kind of, you know, we have total tickets that we can sell in each section. But, you know, again, we probably have a minimum amount of ticket sales to make it worthwhile too.
sure.
Do you know that number?
You know, I have this different section numbers, you know, I have it in my phone. The grandstand seats 540 people. Southwest Shoots seats 40. Northwest Shoots seats 212. And then I guess we have to go around the general admission areas. And then we have a ton of walking, you know, standing areas, so.
We can sort that out. The 10th, if you know, Charlotte, that's a really good idea. That each one of those things we spoke of, concert, you know, fair, produce, parade, all of the events that the committees, pardon me,
5 events.
that's 5 events. Any of those committees that are in charge of those events, get your plan together and drop kind of the deadline for us to work, which is the 10th. And then, you know, go down through and kind of sort it out or do what we gotta do. Be busy from then till the 15th, so you can notify your people and notify us. I think that'd be a proper business way to do it.
Yeah, like I said, it'd be better for us if we could sit down, maybe with Sue and Dr. Evans, and
Yeah.
just to, what you guys are, I guess what you guys would approve, basically.
Could, Charlotte, would you make a motion in regards to
I
that?
make a motion that we separate the 5 events that occur over Labor Day weekend and have each of those event chairs submit a formal plan of what they can do to mitigate COVID risk to the health board, so the board can act on that, those recommendations by, did you say July 10th?
July 15th.
And maybe they can meet with.
We see them on the 10th, and then
Yeah.
we review it on, we can meet on a little later, so the board can review it or something with
Get
it.
that, Cindy?
The 10th and 15th,
Well, bring it to the board by the 10th.
that's,
That, and they may show up as a draft, and then we can go through it and then sort it out then. But, your comment, Sheriff?
I was missing one in there. Question that needs to be raised is the downtown activities.
Mhm. Yeah, which would be the parade, the nightlife.
Yeah, it's not just the event, it's all those people, yeah.
Nightlife, I don't know.
And I know that's not anything you can
Yeah, I mean,
control,
that's
you can
not
only
our
do the
street.
event.
You guys can shut the streets
But
off
that's-
before we-
That is not a
That's all
state
they
law.
under,
Yeah, I think that's
Thing you
part
have to
of
think
what
about.
we need to contemplate, because there's no chairman for those.
yeah.
So this is Don Diverson,
I know.
Chief of Police here. Can you guys all hear me?
You bet. Go ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, obviously that's a big concern of mine, is the downtown area. Also, just the events in general, I think you have to take a really good look, and Paul and I spoke a little bit about this, about the enforcement. With the limited numbers of officers we have a real concern of, you know, that any one of our officers get infected, because it'll have obviously a big effect on the community as a whole that runs through our department. That's been kind of my go-to during this whole thing. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at as well. And we're not going to be able to be in the vicinities like we have been in the past.
Okay. So that, call that six different events. She had 5, and we put downtown at 6.
Yeah, I think we need to really strongly consider that. And from Donnie's point of view, you know, putting officers in that crowd. And something else you need to think about with things being shut down lately is the crowds are going to be bigger, I believe. I'm seeing bigger crowds out in the camping areas and those events that, you know, that are being put on people are showing up because they're tired of being at home and they need to get out and do something. So I think we need to really think this thing through because, you know, the downtown area has already suffered their financial hardships. And a lot of those businesses down there, they depend on Labor Day to make it through the winter time. You know, it's just a fact of life. Whatever we do, we need to tread lightly and keep that in mind.
Mayor, and that's just what I was about ready to say is, when we make decisions from now on, we should be making decisions not just public health, but how it's going to affect the whole community as a whole. Because right now, the way it's looking, if we keep shutting things down, there will not be a Dillon, there will not be a Red County. Nobody will have enough money from tax money to operate. So, and what they're projecting right now out there, these are more experts than I. You're going to lose 50% at least of your money to operate. This is tax, this is community, municipalities, counties. You won't have the money because they're not going to have money to pay property taxes. That's where we get our majority of our money, the county and us, is property tax, or our districts. They won't have any money to pay for any of them because they won't have jobs because we've just closed all the businesses. Very few businesses out there can operate on 25 or 50% occupancy. They've survived now. The ones that's been around for a long time, they have survived. But from now on, though, they're going to start having problems. They live totally around for Labor Day, covers about half the cost. Same thing with motels, too. All of them are. And when we do a decision, I brought this up 2 meetings ago, I wasn't able to make the last one, but any decision we make that goes against what the governor has said, all has to be decided upon by peer-reviewed journals. And the statements from that, the main reason that was added in there is to stop our harm that we can do to communities. Because we should be looking not just at trying to protect public health, because to protect public health, ultimately you just close everything. And everybody then will be protected, at least until they kill themselves. Because they can't do anything then.
Mayor, we haven't said we're shutting it down. All I proposed is we ask those groups to submit a formal plan so we're all in some kind of understanding of an intermediate ground that will balance public health against the businesses. I hear your concern, but we're not making that decision today. We're just asking those venues to submit a plan so we can have a discussion on how best to protect public health.
Jason?
And I'd like to clarify too, you know, our hard deadline is by no means July 15th. We can go as close to Labor Day as we really can before making a decision, like, especially with the concert. You know, rodeo is a little different, but like we can go into August, the first part of August, without making a decision where to have the weekend. So I just wanted to clarify that July 15th is not our hard deadline by any means.
Okay, thank you very much.
One thing is, when you do this, you should come up when you talk. And let me respond first here. I know the decision's going to be made next meeting, but we were going forth and the motion made was to have Sue Hansen and the doctor talk to them, but we already have a position of Sue Hansen's is we should cancel them, except maybe the fair. You were unsure on the fair, but what you put out was everything else. So my strong opinion is it's probably going to come back with the recommendation like what you just said, unless. But I'd like to get from you, if you're held to 50%, are you going to make enough money or are you going to lose money? Because when you hold these things, you guys got to make money.
Well, and the PRCA has, it's what's called kick open the shoots, that start Memorial Day weekend, and they have some financial support available, but it's for the earlier rodeos. Our rodeo is one of the last in the circuit, so I wouldn't count on the PRCA waiving their fees or anything like that for us. So, you know, generally performance has over 3,000 people attended, and I haven't ran the numbers yet, so to speak, but you know, 1,500 is kind of the number I'm thinking in my head that we would probably need to have down there to make it worth our while. and then the concert's a whole nother subject. But I think we could maybe bring in, you know, everybody in this room understands the economic impact Labor Day has on Dillon and Beaver County. So the JCs, I think, as a group, would be willing to just break even this year just to make the event happen. I think that's a route.
That's fair. Sue?
So I just want to make a comment. This is not public health versus the economy. It is public health and economy. To have a healthy economy, we have to have a healthy public health. So we're working together, and this idea that it's one or the other does not exist. So we have to be careful, because if we do have this outbreak of COVID because of all these people, and we are seeing it, there's scientific proof that it is happening, we are going to do more harm to our economy than, you know, potentially canceling these festivities. Because if we go back into where we were before, where we have to close the businesses, these places are not going to survive. And so we know that. And we're trying to prevent that as well. So I just want to be transparent on that. And I will say that with phase 2, I don't believe we will be in phase 3. Not with the way things are going right now. I think we'll still be in phase 2. And I still have a really hard time to see how we can have that many people in our community safely. So that is my viewpoint right now, but I'm not saying that's the only way I'm going to see it. I'm willing to work with everybody to see what plans you have in place, and maybe I'm not seeing something. So I do have an open mind on that, but right now, just following what the governor says and seeing what's happening, I think it's going to be extremely difficult to keep our community safe.
Sure.
I guess the question now that's dying to be asked is, who is going to represent the downtown area of the city of Dillon? I don't mean to dump the ball on your lap, Mayor, but somebody needs to take that ball and figure out what we're going to do with the downtown area. How are we going to spread that out if we're going to have it? How are we going to enforce it? A lot of these mandates that we're under, the 75% that we're under right now, under those conditions of Labor Day. I've been to Labor Day for 28 years, well, 29, but it's going to be very difficult to enforce. So those are some of the things that we need to think about, and we need to have somebody that's willing to step forward and do the plan for the downtown area, if that's what we're going to do. Somebody needs to spearhead that project. It ain't me.
And one thing I want to say too regarding the crowds, I believe they will be bigger because there's so many other places that are being canceled. I think they're going to say, ooh, you know, Dillon's having their festivities, we're all going to come over here. So that's also another thing to consider.
George Warner, I'm going to describe something I'm going to call the teeter-totter effect. If we cancel Labor Day, we've got a lot of residents here that it's proven to be a pretty safe area in comparison with the rest of the state and the rest of the country. So we're going to either have people coming in from other areas here, or when we have residents going out to alternative venues. For instance, the Blackfoot Fair is the same weekend. If it's a hotter spot than Dillon is right now, we'll have people bringing that back to Dillon because they have nothing to do here. I'm also looking at Rockin' the Rivers. I looked at the schedule last night. It looks like it's a go. And until it cancels at the last minute, we have to presume that they're going to be going. It's as close to Bozeman as we can get without being in Bozeman, and we're going to see a lot of activity there. So I guess my concern is, certainly we can minimize or we can cancel the event, but does that minimize our exposure if we have local residents going up, bringing it back? So it may be effective and it may not. That's my point.
Any other comments?
When was that bull riding going to be? What date was that bull riding thing gonna be?
24th, 25th.
Of July?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that'll give you guys kind of an idea of what's gonna happen on Labor Day. Because they're gonna be downtown, if they're having it, they're gonna be downtown, they're gonna be all over the community. So it gives you an idea of what you're looking at, and you got enough time to do what you gotta do for Labor Day. So that gives you an idea. It's just an example, I'm just saying. If you guys go ahead and plan for that bull riding, that'll give you an example of what people are gonna be doing. Give you a better idea.
Okay, any other? Yes, sorry.
And I think the requirements you're gonna be using are fairly simple, 6 feet for non-family members, distancing, correct? And mask wearing is highly, highly recommended, if not, and I still don't know if it's a mandatory face wearing or strongly recommended face wearing. And if I remember right, isn't it supposed to be like 100 people gatherings? Anything beyond that's not allowed?
It's 50.
Is it
Even
50
in
for
the
phase
outside?
2? Okay,
That's what they're fighting over outside.
but I'm just saying that's what we are going to mainly look at, right? You'll have to come up with plans that can meet the 6-foot safe distance, social distancing.
Yeah, and we're not allowed to be less restrictive than the governor.
Right, I understand.
This is Don Giverson again. I'm thinking that, can you hear me okay, Sue?
Yes.
So I think another issue is, as Paul has spoken about the downtown area, is if the restaurants or the bars are working at 50% capacity, that's not gonna, stop people from being out on the streets and whatnot. And I think we all know that the physical distancing is, people will probably be good about it for a little while, but once they start drinking and everything, that'll get a little bit more difficult. And so I just want to make sure everybody's aware of it, and that's just not something that law enforcement's going to be able to enforce. It just would be absolutely impossible. So no matter what the decision is, and I'm not on one side of the fence or the other, so just from a law enforcement standpoint, that's something we need to consider.
Okay, thanks. Now, Cindy, would you reread Charlotte's motion?
Yeah, we don't have a second yet.
I know, but.
Charlotte moved that we separate the 6 events for Labor Day weekend, and each should submit draft written plans to the board on or before July 10th.
Okay, no questions to that motion, I'm looking for a second. And a second, right here. All in favor, say aye. 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 Pose same sign, motion passed. Okay. And Beaverhead County Fair, did we cover that? Did we have to have a plan by July 10th also?
Yeah, that was
The
one
draft
of those.
plans?
That was one of those.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay, so.
Do we need
Okay.
to list out the 6 in the minutes?
I'm thinking in parentheses, yes. I think so.
Might want to tell the fair board that. I
Yeah,
haven't seen it here.
I don't see one here. Right there, right in front of you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
If the 6th event is considered the downtown activities, mayor, someone needs to be responsible for that.
Yeah, that they're, I think it should be a group of the downtown.
Yeah.
They're the ones that know their business best, I guess.
I mean, I'm totally sympathetic to what law enforcement says, and I don't think they're the ones that should do this,
Yeah.
but someone needs to gather the downtown together on their behalf, since it is a huge economic issue, and see if they have some collective thoughts on how to deal with this and help law enforcement.
You know, because I can recall in the past, which there's just a lot of people scattered around listening, but they had at the fairgrounds on Midway, they had, what do you call that? Karaoke. I've never participated, believe me, I've listened. But you got that, and then you got karaoke downtown. Maybe later I participated. Yeah. When I was younger. So, but that type of thing, but I think that's a good idea. You could put the word out downtown just to get a few together, sort it out.
Could somebody help me with 6 events? I've got fair, downtown activities, rodeo, carnival.
Concert, parade.
Great.
Concert.
That's it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, bet.
My name is Matt Kenworthy, City Council. how is it we're identifying the festivities that choose to be taking place downtown, that the participants, i.e. the individuals, are choosing to go downtown? Why are we classifying that as an event? That's not something that the city is technically putting on. That's some place that people choose to gravitate to after they're at the fair, the concert, the rodeo. Those are events. But in my opinion, on how I understand it, downtown is downtown, it's not an event. Now, if the city chooses to block the streets off, then it could be an event, but if the city chooses to leave those streets open, would that not alleviate that as being an event? Why?
Sheriff commented.
We tried many years ago to try and leave those streets open. And what that does is it forces the crowd that gathers downtown, the gathering, if you will, forces them onto the sidewalks. So you have a more condensed group of people. And in this particular instance, that is just exactly what we want to get rid of. We want to mitigate that. We want the people to spread out. So if you're looking to the differentiation between an event and a gathering, you're absolutely right. But we have to look at it as an event because it's something that's going to happen. I will guarantee you that's going to happen. We have to figure out, if we have all of these other events, how are we going to take care of that gathering down there in a safe manner that I can feel good about sending my officers to help patrol and mitigate crime down
There. The other reason that we close the streets is for safety. As soon as everybody gets more alcohol in the system, the car starts driving through, they don't even look, they step right out in front and get hit, you know. So we close the streets for their safety too.
We've had many instances where the cars have drove through the cables and those kind of things. So it's a better environment, if you will, to close the streets off.
And I would echo what Paul's saying from that decision. I think you can call it an event, you can call it a gathering, whatever you want to call it, it's a purpose that we have to look at. So I think that's just, you know, words, events or gathering. But I think it is definitely something we have to look at for public safety, public health, and the risk of crime as well. So no matter what you call it, that's just kind of what it is.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, next on the agenda.
One
Go ahead. Go ahead.
On that could be, I mean, kind of help guide some of them to house parties instead of downtown parties. Again, I know I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls from neighbors. They'd rather have them all gathered in one location far away from their houses.
You know, it's also been mentioned, the karaoke downtown. In my opinion, and watching what's happened over the years, and the karaoke has transferred from the Moose Bar parking lot down to in front of it actually has an effect of thinning that crowd.
It does.
So, you know, it's a way to spread it out.
It does.
So another thing we need to keep in mind with the downtown
Location of things.
Yeah, I would think that if there was a group formed of interested downtown people, be they businesses or whatever, they might be able to come up with some creative ideas that would at least mitigate some of the risk. And that's what I would be looking for, is anything we can do to try to allow these things to happen, yet mitigate risk to the extent we can. I mean,
And I would agree that a good cross-section would be bar owners, restaurant owners, as well as, you know, day business. So everybody kind of has their say in how things, you know, happen, because the bar owners are obviously going to be affected differently than the people who are running shops during the day.
You know, and I would be willing to, if a group is formed, I would be willing to work with them a little bit and give the benefit of everything that I've seen downtown over the years and how it works. And because there's a certain dynamic to that downtown area on Labor Day weekend. So.
That's it. Jason?
I just have a question. I brought it up at the last meeting, and it's an university question. But if, let's say we're not able to have Labor Day weekend, then how are like students allowed to come on campus? I just don't understand that. And I want that clarification, because it kind of seems like it's the same idea.
Yeah, there's a big influx when Western opens, there's no doubt about that.
So it's not a gathering of 50 people or more.
But you're gathering like 1,200 students from all over the country and the state to one area.
To the city of Dillon.
You got youth challenge too?
But I think it's a similar concept. I mean, everybody, we have 10,000 people come to Dillon. Granted, this year maybe a little bit more scaled back, we hope, all over the place. It's, you know, I think it's just something to consider. There's a huge financial issue there too.
Well, the students aren't generally concentrated in one physical place all at one time. You know, classes are, what, Nicole, usually limited to 25 students max?
Max is 25.
That's during class though, that's not.
Yeah, but they still don't gather as 1,200 students in the arena.
At one place, they're not all gathered.
What about the dorms?
Well, they're in their, that's like an apartment.
They're separated.
They're separated in their apartment, in their dorm room.
Yeah. They have their own.
I will say
That's their
that,
living environment. You have a place you live, and we're not saying you've got to leave.
No.
That's your living environment. Same with the students. They have living environments.
and there are a lot of precautions taken. I know that there's probably, how many plans do I need to review?
We've got a lot of plans.
Plans put in place for each, I don't know, each thing
Every
that they
single
have going
department.
on. Yeah,
Every
so
event.
it's not like having 3,000 people at one time drinking and milling around. I mean, it's a controlled environment, same way with Youth Challenge, it's a controlled environment.
But can't we take the same precautions that make Labor Day happen as well, with kind of work together?
I don't see them as even close to being the same thing, but we'll see. I don't know, we'll see what kind of plan.
But to try and help them in their planning, and with what the mayor said, and we're in phase 2, and we can't have more than 50 people.
How do you have a football game?
Well, I don't know that we are.
I'm just saying, but like,
Yeah.
this is a big top football programs fund universities all across the country, like.
Yeah, and right now, for us anyway, those have not been approved.
Well,
And we have
I
to
guess
keep
my
it
point
to
was-
50, so if we follow the guidelines of the governor in trying to help you with your plans, how are you gonna keep your plans to 50 people?
Well, 50 spread out by 6 feet and then another 50.
Which, from a public health disease investigation, I know the governor said that diseases don't care if you're one group of 50 and another group of 50, how are they not going to intermingle? I mean, that whole thing was because we would be able to do contact tracing because that group of 50 people would stay together. And see, that's the issue. They're not going to stay in that group. They're going to end up intermingling.
Same thing with the university, though, you have 25 people in the classroom with under 25 people in the class. That's what, I guess I was just trying to
I get it.
point the similarities
I got it,
between the two, like.
I think the university too, though, they're very small groups and they're much more traceable. We know who's in each class at all times.
But they all meet in the hallway.
They know who's in each dorm, they know who's doing this, and they can trace it.
We won't know who's there.
Yeah, we have one of those things.
George.
The authority with this board, whether statute or other rules, has to do with imminent threat. And let's say we gave a score of 70 to the fair rodeo and events for Labor Day. The college has got to be in the 60 to 65 range, no matter how you look at it. The people are going to be going through the same doors. Is there the wipe down? How often do they see each other, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree with Jason's point that it may not be the same, but it's very similar. And so if we're looking at it, we have to look objectively towards both of them in a similar manner. And I think that's the healthy part of this debate going on right now. I don't think we have enough time today to conduct a good debate, but I think we should prior to this meeting. There should be some kind of hearing that talks about the different issues that you're looking at governing. And then we can make at least an informed decision. I know Sue is trying at her utmost to do the best job. I know that Sue and I will disagree on a lot of points. She does too. But what we're trying to achieve here is the best for the community in a number of areas. And I don't think that any of us differentiate that we want to do the best we can. But it's hard to do it if we disagree on some of the simple basis without it all being expressed. And I've been to every one of these meetings, and I've given you little snippets that generally lets everybody say, George, sit down. But we haven't had a good debate on this. I could spend 4 hours, and I could go through a multitude of issues that some have been contemplated, and I'm sure some haven't. And I think it would be healthy if we scheduled something like that. My intent, if we were going to take a regulatory action today, was to either apply for a grievance or a variance so that we would have such a hearing. Because I think we really need to talk it out. Similar to my example of, well, what are we preventing if we send people out of town and we bring them in? Now, there could be positives and negatives on both sides. But I think we really need to speak to these issues because we all see things a little bit differently. And I think even if they're expressed and we disagree with them, at least everybody knows it's been on the table. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. I'll move on to phase 2 guidelines and concerns. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like some discussion on this as well. Since the bars have really opened up now where they can have people, they can have the bar stools up. That has not been, they've not been following the directives. And it's pretty much, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, it's pretty much business as usual, where they're all up. All the bar stools are like close together, they're all sitting on the bar stools, sitting in front of the taps, which are supposed to be sectioned off. There's not supposed to be standing at the bars. And I think there's some issues with that we need to talk about, as well as I've had some complaints regarding the restaurants not following the directives or the plans that they have in place. So I'm just leaving it up to comments and what people think. I have some ideas that maybe we could help them. I don't want it to be a punitive, go in there and say, hey, you guys are doing the right thing. I want it to be, as Paul said, I want it to be more of an education thing. I would like it to be, when we talk about this, not just public health, that this is just for the safety of the community. And I have some ideas I want to talk about after discussion, so.
I think to underscore the concern too is that many of the cases of the state have been related back to bars. Yes. They're noticing that as a significant trend. So I think that's reason to look at it further.
I'm going to put Don Geiger again. I would agree with that. I think that the restrictions that they're put forth are getting very lax on, a lot of establishments, but I don't think it's really the establishment's fault, so to speak. I think as the numbers grow, it becomes increasingly difficult for, waitresses or waiters or owners to do that. And I have a difficulty, obviously, you can't enforce those issues very, very effectively either, nor put the officers in a position of having to do that as we respond to other calls. But I do see a little bit more of a lax attitude toward it, and I've heard that from the officers as well. And I did read information, I believe it was Megan maybe that said there, that we are seeing a trend of bars where it's starting to uptick around the state. Obviously, we haven't seen that there. But I do think that maybe, if the owners just kind of tell their barkeepers and their waitresses and whatnot to, kind of be up on the restrictions as well. Again, I think that would probably do a lot, because like I said, if you're working all day, pretty soon you start kind of getting lax on that, not because you want to, just because it goes to the back of your mind. But I don't think by any means it's intentional. And I think that those restrictions are continued to be abided, we won't have to worry about a bigger issue coming down where they do have to close down, which would be awful, because I feel for businesses right now. I can't imagine.
On that
Sure.
note,
Charlotte, go ahead.
I wonder if, Megan, if we, Board of Health and Public Health, if you could even draft a memo or something, giving some of that data of the current upswing in cases statewide, and if you could give some, it wouldn't be peer reviewed, but some at least honest, some documented facts of this is where many of these cases are coming from, just to make them aware, because that kind of information is not coming out in the news. And I think would be helpful for all of us to recognize where the upswing in cases is coming from, because they obviously done tracebacks on a lot of them. Maybe something like that might be helpful, educational.
I think that's what we were kind of looking for. I mean, for me, it's helpful to see real numbers too, and that helps me understand that there's data on something, and we're not just doing it willy-nilly. But we have to get the exact numbers from the state, but I think it'd be helpful to include that, and then just maybe a little reminder from the Board of Health on what we would think would help you be safe as a business, and then...
I mean, it would be pretty easy if you could get that data just to document, X number of the cases have been in response to these type of events, or whatever. I think that might be real helpful.
Well, the state does some of that already. I think they have the data. Where did all the ones that you say are new ones? Did they come from bars, contacted bars? Did they come from contacted restaurants? Did they come from living in rest homes, or did they just, and what's the age groups? I bet you one of them was an older person that died, but the rest of them were in the 20s, is what I heard. I understand looking at the data. So it's the young ones that really get sick of staying home with mom and dad, they're leaving. They're getting out.
And that's the exact trend they're seeing, is young people, bars. They said, one number was that 8% of cases are related to travel. So.
Yeah, I wonder if we could, number one, maybe a letter to the bars and the restaurants, but number two, maybe we should put this in the newspaper, say, we have concerns, this is where it's coming from, and just to remind everyone and inform them that this is what's happening.
So that kind of comes to what I was going to talk about. So Megan and I'm sorry, excuse me.
Oh, I was just going to weigh in on this,
go ahead.
the complaints that we've had. Very few of our complaints that we've had have been documented in any way, shape, or form. So in addition to the education with the COVID status and that kind of thing, we need to start documenting where these complaints are coming from and what type of complaint they are, because it may be something just as simple as a misunderstanding of the restrictions or the guidelines. you know, and
Are you-
instead of,
Excuse me, are you talking about complaints of patrons against things that
I'm
we see
talking
happen?
about any kind of complaint. Okay, and at this point right now, it's kind of unfair, the county attorney's office, because the statute's very clear that he is in charge of prosecuting or taking care of any of the, Donnie and I are acting as his agent kind of thing. So, you know, we need to get our ducks in a row before we start throwing out those accusations. Just like we need to handle them the way that we would handle any complaint, criminal case, civil case, whatever. We need to document, where did that come from, you know? Anonymous tips are, you know, sometimes they're wishy-washy at best. So, but we still need to document them, and I think we've been lax on doing that.
So that's exactly my point too. We have these local directives, we put them out, but then do we just ignore them? I mean, it seems like we have to have sort of some kind of plan in place on how we're gonna deal with it. And so, again, going back, I was thinking the same thing, having some kind of educational sheet that one side has the education on, the other side has a checklist of the things that they need to follow. My other idea, you guys probably will roll your eyes at me, but again, should this be public health doing this, it should be a broad range of people. And I was thinking it would be really cool if we did some kind of a media campaign about what we're going to do, what our plan is in place, and we go out and Board of Health, Public Health, law enforcement, we go out to these different places and do kind of a community education, say, here's this form, spend 10 minutes with the owner at the restaurant, bar, whatever. Just talk to them, say, hey, you know, we just want to help you make sure that you understand that, and if you have any questions, that kind of thing, and just make it more public, and we're here to help you, because we are here to help you. We don't want to.
Well, one thing
cause
that
problems.
has happened since we've gone to phase 2 with this upswing in cases is now presumably the data's there, so we can say, this is what happened. You know, when we were first addressing this, we didn't know, and so it was a vacuum. Now, hopefully, we've got, as we used to say, charts and graphs that can say, this is what happened when these guidelines have not been enforced, and document that, and I think that might help bring the message more cohesively to the public.
And I think, you know, we did that during the first part of this with the Sean Guyverson again. And I think that was very effective. So, Sue, I'm not blowing my eyes off, and I think we need to do whatever we can. We'll be more than happy to help you with anything that keeps businesses open and the public safe. So no matter what you want to do prior to that, I'm just more concerned that, you know, after the fact, when things are going on, the enforcement of it, it's just, I mean, it's just impossible. So I think anything that is proactive prior to the events themselves, I mean, I'll do whatever I can. I know Paul will agree with me on that as well.
But I think it'd be really cool if it wasn't just law enforcement, that Board of Health got involved and, you know, just kind of.
It has to be universal, it has to be a group effort, because, like you say, public health, there's going to be people that puff their chest out if it's public health. People are going to stick their chest out, obviously, government or law enforcement. So I do think it needs to be a collaborative effort with the public involved as well, because that's who, you know, that's the players in this. So we need to be one unit, as George said. We kind of need to get it all out there, because we're going to disagree, but we need to come to some kind of understanding for safety and for economical recovery.
Yeah. Because I know in Bozeman, go ahead, I'm sorry. In Bozeman, the health officer, I mean, they're not taking that proactive. Maybe they have in the past and it's just gotten so crazy. They're going in and taking pictures of it and then going right to the county attorney for enforcement kind of thing. So
Well, I can see that occurring once numbers get really high and stuff like they have in Bozeman. I mean, thank God it hasn't happened here yet, but I'm not so sure that's not going to happen. If you get a hotbed, you know, we can one person to go to a crowded area, you know, and watch this thing kind of explode. So that's what we've avoided so far. We're hoping. Yeah, like I said, a proactive approach, where we're at now is gonna be the best approach. It may not be the best approach in 2 weeks, but, you know, we kind of have to deal with things as they come along, roll with the punches, so to speak.
Well, I'm not against at all education. I'm telling what we think should be done.
You hearing back there?
That's okay. I'm not against at all education or any of that, getting it across to everybody, you know, from this board. But I'm also one of personal responsibility. And again, I hate the rules that you guys set up and the governor set up. I really think some of those rules have been set up for political issues. I've said that before. There's no way, and anybody can show yet, because they don't have the data, that even what we've done helps on closing things. You think, it gives you a feeling that it does. Right now you have 120-some thousand plus in the whole United States. You know, the first SARS that came out in 2003, you had about 8,000. They were all confined in China pretty much in that. And then it died out. It died out in about 120 days. We now went way beyond that. And we're still seeing increases coming up. It's still going on. This is SARS 2, really. Why is it going on forever and ever and ever? Well, back then, they pretty much shoved in herd immunity. What they call herd immunity. Yeah, they all died out. The areas where they were, they died out. What happened now is they went and China spread them everywhere in the world. And it went for months with no confinement on it. We haven't confined it even, except we've shut businesses down, but you still let the people move. What we're doing isn't helping anything.
You don't know that. You can't.
You don't have proof that it does, though, either.
No, but a lot of the modelings predicted that we have 2.5 million deaths in the U.S.
That's because they're using the data from SARS-1.
And it's a different
And it's
virus.
less. This one's
is a
less.
totally different virus. It's in the same family. It has different infectivity ability.
Agreed, it's less.
It's
The
less,
death rate is less on this one, right?
which makes it more contagious.
Well, that doesn't necessarily make it more.
It does because it can live longer.
The
It's not as fatal to the host.
transmittity, the rate of transmittity, you don't know.
We have a
on
good
this
idea
one.
it's an R2. So it's much more contagious, and it still has a very significant fatality rate, especially compared to other viruses that we know, like influenza.
That is correct.
What we do know is that it's very severe.
On some people. Some people it's not. Like kids, very little. Like what the last number, and it changes all the time. But for kids 18 or less, it's like death rate 0.007%. Was the last number I seen. That's pretty low.
We don't know who's going to get more sick. We don't know that. It's a highly variant virus. So I don't know that I couldn't get it. I'm a healthy person would I have a stroke that would change the rest of my life. And my loved ones have risk factors too. So we don't want to put them at risk.
Also,
Living is at risk.
Yeah.
this virus is starting to mutate. They're finding evidence of that too. So what does that mean? What's it going to cause? If they think right now it's going to become more communicable.
Well,
There's lots of things, you just don't let things just go. I mean,
no, but one
we have
study
to
says
see
it's,
that.
one study says it's mutating, 2 others say it's not. Nobody really knows on any of it. I mean, so.
Sure.
If I may, this is, what we're trying to accomplish here is no different than any other kind of preventive program. If we're out there doing community policing, or we're out there preventing DUIs, those kind of things, we don't know what effect our efforts have on the community. We're in that same ballpark here. You know, we do the best we can with the information that we've got, and we may or may not find out. More often than not, we won't find out. That's what I see this whole thing is about.
Okay. Thanks. And then we better move on here. I got old business, approval of the June 12th minutes. I got a copy here. I assume the board has looked at minutes of June 12th. Cindy patiently has typed them out, tried to keep up with us. So with that said, is there a motion to approve the June 12th, Friday, June 12th minutes?
I haven't had it.
Go ahead.
I'm reading here, it says, under review testing and tracing numbers, Sue commented that the tests have been offered to assisted living facilities and most have refused testing. Only one assisted living facility refused testing, not all of them. And they actually refused all of it. They kept some tests, so we must have done.
One assisted living facility.
Refused most testing or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other additions or corrections, minutes? Looking for a motion to approve with corrections.
I so move.
First, do I have a second?
Second.
A first and a second to approve the minutes with those corrections. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passed. And I got public session comments on subjects under Board of Health jurisdiction, not on agenda.
It's a public comment.
Go ahead. Public comment.
George Warner again. We just witnessed 2 to 3 minutes of debate between the mayor and the health nurse and the health doctor. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I could spend an hour on that one subject, not repeat myself, and 90% of it you might disagree with, but 10% of it you'd probably agree with. That's exactly why I'm talking about a public hearing to voice some of this stuff. If we don't have a public hearing to discuss some of the things we're dealing with regulatory, then the only option is to question the authority. I don't want to go there. I would just assume we had open, strong debate. And I would say schedule a hearing that would take 4 hours before you make a decision to make sure it's darn well informed. If not, then we're going to have to question the authority. So when you schedule the next meeting, I think you should look at a public hearing. And if you want a list of issues, I can provide a list of issues that should be debated. And then we can go forward from there. That's all I have, thank you.
I'd second that.
Okay, I got public discussion comments on subjects. George's comment. Any others? Okay. Now, next on the agenda is it says meeting schedule. Next regular meeting is July 17th in Lima. Now, you had these plans coming in on the 10th, by the 10th of July, correct? Is that correct? Okay, these plans coming in by the 10th of July, so there should be some kind of a get-together on the 10th or the 11th or something like that to start the review process down the line on these plans. And then you want to proceed with that next meeting on the 17th in Lima.
So meet on the 10th and 17th?
But we have to meet on the 11th or something like that.
The 11th is a Saturday.
What's that?
The 11th is a Saturday.
Well, that'd be the 10th, Friday the 10th. We should meet it Friday the 10th. And then these plans that have been turned in by each of the events, the 6 events or whatever it is, kind of go through those with the people that turned them in. So they can, sort that out, even if they split up a little bit. So, because that's a lot of things to look over. And then, after we go through those drafts, then meet that following Friday, I guess. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
With coming back, rewritten or little additions or corrections, if you will, to the plan.
By the 17th.
by the 17th, but do you want that meeting to be in Lima, or do you want that to be here?
I think it needs to be here.
Do we have something in our bylaws about when we meet in Lima though?
No.
Okay.
No, I just noticed that, we planned it before, we always come to Lima about this time of year, so, but with all that needs to happen here and the people invited, it'd be a whole lot easier for them to come here, to try to get them to convince to drive to Lima.
Oh, yeah, that does make sense.
And that's a smaller venue.
Yeah, so, we could,
Just switch Lima to the fall.
Lima to August, or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's,
Or 2 weeks off of the 17th, whatever that is. Yeah.
Is that a noon or 11 meeting?
so the 10th, I wanted to say too, we will do our first drive-through testing, and it's from 11 to 1. So if we could have the Board of Health meeting after 1 o'clock,
Sure.
I would really appreciate it. Because I need the morning to have to get ready for that testing.
Okay, so you want noon to 1 o'clock, we'll meet at 1:30 here?
That would work for me, yes.
I'll have to okay that with Carly, find out if this workroom's already occupied.
You said 11 to 1?
That's when I do my testing, yeah.
So that'll give you 30 minutes to get here, and then we can start at 11:30 and.
1:30?
Or excuse me, 1:30. And each of the groups that present the plan have at least one representative from that group here.
Yeah.
At least one person from each group that present the plan. Then we could work through them, believe me, that afternoon. At the time we go through them. And then, draft, and then it would come back to us on the 17th, or they contact in between the 10th and the 17th, but kind of a approve or disapprove of the plan on the 17th. Or something like that. Like Jason said, they can even go a little longer, but at least we get started on the 10th. We'll just see how many groups are ready on the 10th to have their plan reviewed. After you review it, they can go back to, we can each give and take and that kind of thing.
So the 10th is at 1?
1:30.
And the 17th is at
Regular time.
noon?
Regular time, 11 o'clock. Well, the 7.
12 o'clock is usually.
Well, noon. Today we were,
Well, these special meetings have been 11, but I think the regular, so it doesn't matter.
What do you want,
I keep them at 11.
keep it
Let's
at
keep it
11.
at 11.
Yeah.
Keep it at 11.
We'll have confusion.
So for sure meet on the 17th again?
Here.
Okay.
But between the two of us, we'll check with Carly and see if this is available. I would assume it is. Friday should be kind of quiet. Okay, under new business, I just have one item that was brought to me. I have a letter here from Kim Martinell. A lot of us know who that is. Kim Martinell is asking to be considered on the Board of Health as a technical advisor. She says, I'm reaching out to you today to let you know that I would be interested in serving on the Board of Health if there is a need as a technical advisor. I was a board member for about 4 years until 2 years ago when I inadvertently ended up with a situation while I was working 2 full-time jobs and volunteering with the ambulance. I expressed my desire to step down from the chair position during the next election cycle. There was a misunderstanding and the board thought that I was stepping down effectively immediately. This was not my intention. If you have a solid board and do not need additional members, I understand. If you would like to consider me on the board, I would be happy to re-engage. Thanks to each of you for all you do for your community. But up at the top, Shurex Board of Health Technical Advisor. So it'd be something for the board to consider to have Kim come on as that. In reading that, is that if there is a discussion, then I just call for a motion to do that.
Well, I guess I have a question. I don't know Kim, so what's area of expertise?
I would let these two.
She's our alcohol and tobacco prevention specialist.
Not tobacco,
Oh, just,
just prevention specialist, basically. So
Okay.
I think she would be excellent to have on that. We have Erin Montgomery as our tobacco prevention specialist as a technical advisor. So I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. Do I have a motion to appoint her as, or have her come on as a Board of Health Technical Advisor?
move that we can, for a technical advisor to the Board of Health.
Second? Second. You're gonna go first and the second, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign, hearing none. Congratulations, Kim. Hard fought campaign. Okay, is there any other new business in the room today? Or comments from the conference call? Hearing none, thanks for coming, and the next thing is adjourn the meeting.